Martin Shervington, are you ready to fearlessly question today?
I meant to say yes at that point, aren't I? I don't know if I am. Let's do it anyway.
Well, we have no choice. We're here, you showed up, I'm here, so we might as well at least do a little bit of something. So, before we get started, I want to kind of recap our fateful meeting in person that we had. Just kind of tell a little bit of the story. Um, and even though you don't recall the event actually happening, I'm going to just move past that. I'll move right past my sheer and utter forgettability for you and tell the story anyways, because I think it's important to know for people. And it was a nice evening out in San Diego. It was social media marketing world, and we were hanging out in a hotel suite. Yes, there were other people around, and I complimented you on two things, and I think I freaked you out. I said I really like your suit. It was a nice pinstripe suit, and I complimented you on your cell phone. It was a Nexus 5. I haven't seen one out in the wild. I hadn't seen any people using it, and I kind of saw this look come over your face like, I'm really glad there's other people in this room with me. I'm not sure what I would do otherwise. I left my pepper spray in my hotel room, and this dude is really creeping me out. And then we pretty much parted ways, and then you forgot me that I ever existed. So, Martin, how you doing today, though?
Very good. Well, I think we've caught up since then. I say we've become friends since then. But I can't remember. I mean, at that event, I was like a rabbit in the headlights for the entire time because it was an amazing event, but there's just so many people and just met, and I was like, yeah, in a daze for like 3 days.
So you're saying I shouldn't take it personal, then, is what you're saying? I shouldn't take it personal?
Definitely don't. Definitely don't. And I feel like well...
Or are you telling me to take it personal? Because I can handle it if you are.
Maybe a little, just a little. Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's right.
All right.
Well, it won't happen again next time. But you wouldn't be asking me about my suit. Well, you didn't ask me. You didn't mean compliment. Thank you. But we'd have a conversation next time. We'd have questions.
Well, I guess I probably, the physical interaction. I should never caress the man on the mid part of his back.
I didn't want to mention the caress. It was the caressing.
Yeah,
it was the caressing. It wasn't. It was not awkward.
Probably my first mistake. You don't touch a dude and talk about how well he's dressed. It's probably my first mistake. But I'm glad you could teach me that life lesson, and I've actually been able to atone for that sin, and we'll see what we can do for making up for it today. But before we get started, I want you to catch everybody up. Tell everybody your story, kind of as it relates, fearlessly questioning your sense of humor or comedy to a lesser extent.
I know. Firstly, always a difficult subject, this. So it's a mixed blessing going to stand-up school, but I went to stand-up school for 6 months, about 4 years ago, and I was writing some scripts. Turns out I'm not that good a script writer, even though I've got one optioned. And I had a writing partner, and they're on comedy, drama, and comedy. In fact, people don't know this. Probably don't know this. I haven't said this for a long time. I wrote a script about a psychiatrist who steals his client's content and turns it into stand-up comedy. And it was called Lie Down, Stand Up. Pause. And that was the one that got optioned, which is kind of cool. And it was good sort of character development. It was what they call a dramedy, which is a weird word. But I went to stand-up school at the time. And I then went back again this year. I was in San Francisco for about 6 weeks. So I went back to San Francisco Comedy College and did stand-up again, which is really why I was there. And I haven't cracked it. I haven't found a way of being totally natural with doing it. And partly because I'm regularly there with wanting someone to record it so I can put it on YouTube. So that isn't the way to do it. That's not, you've just got to roll with you doing your thing. And the more you kind of go off script, the better it is. And that's really what stand-up should be, or so the way I've learned it, is that you have your script in the background where you have your jokes and things, and you fall back on them if you just can't be funny naturally. And it's a different mentality. And I think that then coming on to Google Plus, what, about 2 years, 10 months ago, almost 2 years, 9 months, and the Hangouts on air just allow me to play sometimes with the comedy. But I'm not funny enough in the vehicles that I've got. 'Cause I'm not that funny when I write. I've discovered this. I don't know if I told this before. I find that I can write jokes and they can technically be good, set up and punchy to that. But it's funny. I like conversations in Hangouts, and I like conversations in real life, and I like being allowed to go into kind of crazy, wacky guy like surreal space. And sometimes you've just got to have the right. Before you got me on a particular morning where it was impossible is probably the word that you would have used for trying to get me to to be sensible and answer that. But that's the sort of, that's nice. That's just fun and playing. So I like, even though I write a lot of technical guides and things around Google Plus and talk about social SEO and talk about things, I really like the way that comedy connects people, and I like stand-up as an art. It's an art, Joey.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to say anything, but we talked for about an hour. I said probably 3 words, and we got about 4 minutes of usable material out of that thing. So I wasn't.
That's not bad. That's not bad. There's worse out there. Really?
Maybe I haven't. I guess I'll put it this way: you were definitely the most abstract and off the wall guest so far that we've had. So congratulations, Martin, for winning that award.
You brought it out, but it's different. It's because you didn't go that I want to talk about Google Plus. And if you set the context to talk about Google Plus, then I'll have a stack of things, and I go, okay, well, people want to know about that.
Well, see, that's what this whole show is about. You don't get to talk about what you normally talk about.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I talked about the mosquitoes plaguing. Exotic, apparently, I am. That was. Do you know what? I did a Yoda then, unintentionally. But it's okay. It was a grammatical thing.
So I guess before people kind of think like, well, we're just going to talk about, being funny. No, that's not really kind of the overall goal. I'm going to clear it up just a little bit. So we're going to kind of be addressing this conversation as it relates to your ability to incorporate, more likable humor or conversation in business and throughout life to ultimately kind of communicate your message better. Is kind of where we're going with this. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that's where.
No, you didn't tell me that. You could have told me that before we started. We've got 7 minutes now that you're gonna have to edit out.
I thought it was implied. So, anyways,
Okay.
First fearless question to you. We'll actually just kick this thing right off, and we'll see how you do with it. Why don't more people try to be funny?
Why don't more people try to be funny? I don't think you should try to be funny, and I think that's the problem. And that's when if you try to be funny, then usually it's not going to go well because you're trying. So you've got another Yoda one in there, which you can have.
Well, allow me to, because you can say, Joey, that was a terrible question. Let me rephrase. Why don't people allow themselves to be funny?
Okay.
How's that?
Much better.
Right.
I was going to do a Yoda impression then, and that's fine. You missed out. So, I think it's about relaxing. I think it's about the consequence of saying that thing being that way, and people will often. Do you know what? You've segued into my question for people after, which I'm going to come on to. But will people? Are you okay with just relaxing into yourself and saying, well, this is who I am, this is how I am, and you either like it or you don't, as opposed to giving that scripted bit of information? And this is why joke telling is different to just naturally being funny, and allowing yourself just to go, hey, look at that thing and how that relates, and connecting the dots between things. And playing, it's actually about play, I think. Just natural comedy is when you can just have fun communicating an observation. Which, we know that's a huge thing. And then you can perfect it into written form. But I think that the first stage is often just talking about things and playing with the idea. And I'm obsessed with the mosquitoes. Honestly, if you were to create some technology to bug people, it would be like a mosquito. They're like malevolent aliens, because nothing else nibbles on your ankles at the same time. Well, then pops up and goes, I'm nibbling the ankles, and then goes back down and does it again. Things like that, and I look and just go, and it's been able to, not that it's funny, but it's been able to just look at reality and find the ridiculousness, find the curiosities, find the things that you don't necessarily see, obviously, on the surface. And I do have a bit of a surreal sense of humor. And it means that you can go off and you can create stories, and you can create characters, and you can give animals voices and things. And I have voices for Benji the dog at home. So I think that for people, you've just got to play, really, to allow your humor to come out. Now, you want it in a business context. It's risky, and sometimes it's not funny. And that's something which is, it depends on the person, it depends on the audience, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. But there's also a big thing about the Hangouts and being here and having conversations, connecting with people, of just doing what you do and not trying to make people laugh. It's just going, do you know what? I'm just going to say, be whatever. I'm wearing plus 2, by the way. Does anyone know? I'm in Brazil right now. It's raining. Otherwise, I'd show you over that way. But which is probably why there's wonky, dodgy music and wonky Wi-Fi. So I think there's a connectivity thing on using Hangouts, and I think that the social media allows you to people who are watching, assuming them switched off, they might have done better. But if anyone is watching, then it allows them to go, do you know what? I can connect with that person. Or not. And I think that's the value of relaxing into it. I told you it wasn't going to be funny talking about humor.
Well, maybe I had. Well, I mean, we need to set the proper expectations. But
we did.
Before we go any further, I do want to toss out this invitation to everybody that is watching. If you do want to hop on the show at the end and ask Martin your fearless question, well, feel free to leave a comment in the event page. Use the hashtag camera-ready so that we know that you're fully clothed and acceptable to come on air, and we will have Martin answer your question directly. But Martin, no, I think you bring up a very good point. And what I want to ask you is in talking about just business or whatever, I think it's just communication, and that's obviously at the core of good business. But the idea that what benefits have you seen when you're able to make somebody laugh when you're not able to make them laugh, and how more accepting or willing are they to kind of follow along with you?
I don't know who first said it, but there's a phrase which it's kind of over there. It's like a mosquito over there. It says it's very hard to hate somebody after you've had a good laugh with them. And okay, that's an extreme end, but there's a point, which is if you just and when there's a difference between and a belly laugh. If you get into that place, you connect. Because you both sound the same thing funny. It doesn't matter who said it or did it, you found it funny. You both have that experience. And I think that when I've given presentations, and sometimes you make that one gag that was never scripted, and sometimes you must set things up, people enjoy that, isn't it? People like to laugh. They like to laugh. But it's hard talking about funny stuff because it's usually not funny. But it's hard to set up. Well, there's a difference between setting it up. That's the point. You can have it that this is a gag that people will laugh at, or you can have it that you are just relaxed and enjoying yourself, and you may or may not say something funny, and if you do, woohoo, bonus, and the person then likes that. So I think going after the laugh isn't the thing. It's actually being yourself comfortable enough to say, look, this is how I am in the situation.
Right, I think that's probably the biggest thing is that people think they have to try to be funny, but it's more or less being their natural self. And I find it's more about saying stuff that people don't expect you to say, or like what's on your mind that people are kind of shocked by. It's like having that conversation.
Yeah,
I mean, I enjoy that. That's what I get a kick out of.
Yeah, I mean, it breaks the usual way of seeing things, and so shock is one of the things. The thing is, you learn these techniques, and then you got to kind of forget them as well, because if you say something shocking, the response of laughter is a, oh, I can't believe you just said that kind of thing. You got that there, which is funny, but then you've got conceptual type jokes. See, my favorite, I've got 2 conceptual jokes, neither of which are that funny, but I'm going to tell them, and they're not mine, but they're conceptual. I'll just explain this, which is about how you play with things. Now, these are clever but not funny, right? Joey, yes. How do you kill a circus?
I don't know.
You stab it in the jugular, right? Now, it's not that funny. Now, what you find, so I'm in Brazil, I've been here for a few months.
You got to make the guests feel good, Got to play.
Yeah, I know. So, and puns do not travel, but you can tell somebody's level of English if they're able to take that, and they can get puns in jokes. So sometimes I found some people that speak really good English here, and they are playing on a conceptual realm of fun. They're clever, right? The other one is, and these are the really. This is when I'm desperate telling jokes pretty to I don't know, family. Did you hear about the magic tractor, Joey?
Sadly, no.
It went up a hill and turned into a field. All right? Now, the tag on that is it was a magic tractor. Yeah? Now, the point is, they're not funny, but they're conceptually clever. Now you get into other jokes, because what they do is they force your head to connect two things, and you go, oh, I see what happened there. Now, that sort of stuff isn't what most humor is, not what most people want in the world. That's a joke. And there's many different jokes, and it has a setup and a punch. And those happen to be extreme end of odd, not that funny joke. Generally, just going out and having conversations and playing. Here, what I found is people are like, you're so funny. You're because I can't speak much, so I'm acting, and my arm and my motions, and I'm kind of like trying to explain things to people, and people find that very entertaining. You don't need to do that when you've got the words. You know, if you want to buy mint tea, for instance, because you want a cup of mint tea, you know you're going to shop. Have you got any mint tea? Yes, you have. Fantastic, thank you. And you've got to have one box. Great. Whereas here, you've got to try and find ways of going, what is mint and what is tea, and how am I going to act this out? Because I don't know that. It turns out tea is actually tea. But you basically act, and people are going, this is like it's improv. Not that they know what improv, but that's what it becomes like, and that's something which has kind of been fun to play with.
I have to say this, Martin. I do fear a little bit for your overall psyche the longer you stay in Brazil and have these.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm leaving tomorrow.
That's good.
Morning.
That's good.
I'm back in the UK.
I feel a little better because I'm not sure. I feel like it's like a Shining type situation with you and your language barrier, where you kind of get slowly more conscientious and more involved in your inability to communicate.
All work and no play. Yeah.
Next question to you though is I'm not sure where you're gonna go with it, but why don't you really let your comedic instincts come out more in the work that you do on Google Plus and all that stuff?
It's having the place to do it, and I think I've tried a few different things. So I've tried lots of different things over the time. Setting something up to be a funny show, not a good move. That is setting yourself up for failure. That is the only way you can do it. Now, if you're working with Amy Harrison, for instance, and she's brilliant because she's got great scripts and she's naturally really fun, and you've got an editable piece, and also you can do things. If you can have a funny conversation, you can do. There's two different things there. One of which is actually scripted, and the other one is funny conversation. But it's not guaranteed every time. So if you say we're going to do something funny, it's a very high risk, I think, on that. So I would love to find a way, and I don't know what it looks like, and I've thought about it. I've actually thought, one of the things I've thought about, and I haven't spoken to them about it, is myself, Ronnie Bincer, David Amland, Mark Trappeg, Lee Smallwood getting together in a hangout, and just anything, including, and we get it after, even swearing on Google Plus and beep it out, you know. But that sort of thing would actually, because it's the shock thing, it's the different thing. Because myself and Lee, for instance, because it's a very British sense of humour, we'll be very Boise, jokey, when his wife is around, and we're being Boise, and it's funny, but nobody knows, because nobody sees that stuff. And I just wonder if there's a way of having a vehicle that allows that side of things to come out and to play. But I haven't found the vehicle, Joey, is the fact.
All right, well, don't beat yourself up too much, but we are running a little behind schedule, and it is time for you to turn the tables on everybody and ask them your fearless question that you have always been a little afraid to find the answer to.
I'm going to ask this one. Always. Let's go for this. Should you edit yourself?
All right. Should you edit yourself? So that's going to probably come back to language and all that fun stuff
and should you be should you say that thing? So you're on a comment thread. Let's talk about Google Plus, and you think of something really that you think at that moment in time is hilarious. Should you make that comment? Should you do it? And let's say it's risky in whatever which way. Any of the things which are going to, should you do it? And the same then in real life, should you do it there? Should you do it on stage? And you find, and this is something I look at and find, is the jokes I would tell, if it's jokes, and the things that I'll say to friends wouldn't necessarily be the same as I'd say to my grandmother when she was alive, or my mother or her friends, because they don't want to hear certain things. Whereas you speak to your friends, etc. So where do you put the boundaries on the conversations? When do you say things? And I think that that's something which, and when you do comedy, when you do stand-up, you make decisions as to what to do and what to discuss. And my stand-up sometimes will be edgy or risky. It depends on the audience and so on. And that's something which is it's a journey that you continue to go through. And it's thinking, and this is something for me, for the audience members. It's like different contexts, different behaviours. And I think that there's, for me, being very open about it, there's a flattening down of some of those extreme joke takes, because some people know that I will be going after the joke regularly, and I'll be the one that's kind of pushing and winding people up sometimes. But because of the nature of the comment threads and things on here, it's not like that. It was probably more in the early days for me, partly because I'm in private communities and I'm working on things. But the question is, do you make that joke?
I tell you, I can't. There's hundreds of deleted comments that I never posted, because I think in comments it's such a riskier proposition, because, like you said, when you're writing, it's so much harder for people to get the tone out of it.
Right. Let me give you an example. Okay, I'm gonna say, so this is my most popular comment, I think, ever, as in more plus ones than anything, private, was on a post from somebody who used to work in Google, and they were talking about Google Glass, and they were talking about a nature of an adult type film on watching on Google Glass. And the comment I said was something like, title of the film, was it Two Girls, One Glass? Okay, which is both conceptual and I've used this in stand-up. It's on my YouTube, so I don't mind throwing it out there now. Now that joke, you have to understand the backstory, or you have to have something in the backstory in order to get what that joke is. And people plus one. And I have to say, I like the fact that that joke was on a comment thread, and that I then used it in stand-up. I like that. And I think that part of it, and I know if I have more time, and what I mean by that is if I make it more of a priority on comment threads, and you decide to play and you throw stuff out there and you just say those things, you find a groove. And I think that's one of the things I haven't got the luxury of at the minute, is just being able to play on comment threads. But I like it. And I probably can rekindle vaguely amusing. It's not quite hilarious, but vaguely amusing.
Well, and I mean, this whole idea of editing yourself is probably one that deserves its own show, because we can go on. And I think the only thing that I would probably say to that, since I'm going to answer your question because I'm the host and I can do whatever I want, I think
you can. So yours.
I think what upsets me, and you tell me if you agree with this or not, I get upset with how sensitive people are to certain things, and I think that's more frustrating. I think,
damn those sensitive people, they should just toughen up. You should tell them that. You should put that on the threads. That's always a good one.
Well, we're all aware of we all know these things exist, and then we want to pretend and close our eyes like, oh no, I'm above this, and that's what I have a problem with. It's like it's just this kind of really disingenuous kind of high horse.
Give me an example. I like it. Just to give me a bit of context.
So like I grew up in a Italian Catholic family, and I'm no stranger to four-letter words myself, but I obviously never use them in any shows or anything like that, because I'm aware of people's sensitivity to them. But at the same time, I mean, if I was hanging out with my friends, or if I was having a conversation with somebody else, I mean, it would be a little bit different. It would be a little edgier, and and it's I mean, I don't know why we act like these things don't exist. I think that's what bothers me.
So it's interesting, and yet I'll tell you why, because I've gone through this one. Because I don't mind swearing. I don't mind swearing on stage, but I don't swear, and I don't have swearing on comment threads. And the reasons why is actually people have come to me and they've told me stories of businesses that have looked at people's comments threads and said that they would not do business with that person because that person is too much of a risk for them to take into their organization, because of the nature of the language or the subjects that they are posting on, and so on. That's actually the reason why, is that it's understanding that this is what, it's out into the world, and anybody can see it. And so it depends if you want to be the professional. So what we're really saying is, professionalism is being perceived to be in that way. And if you look at Gary Vaynerchuk, he's saying, well, screw that. This is what you've got, people. And if you don't like it, but he won't be able to work in certain ways. Chris Brogan, on the other hand, doesn't, and so he's got a different. And Jay Bear, I don't know, it does. So it's almost you are, if you decide to go the route of saying, listen, this is the language that I use and whatever, then you both narrow and you broaden, I think, the appeal.
Right, I think that's the most interesting part. Gary does it as a qualifier, and that's, we're all trying to find people who we want to do business with, but we're also trying to find who we don't want to do business with, and that also helps that in either direction. And what bothers me with what you just said too, and I got to come back at this, and I'll say that we're all on this whole hate transparency, be genuine, be honest kick, but then at the same time we're going to have businesses that are unwilling to work with somebody who, again, just chooses to be a little bit more transparent, we'll say, with the way that he approaches himself in public.
No, but it's also. But here's the test. I mean, this is the thing, and this was a David Amlan one, which is, if your grandmother was sitting there, would you say the same thing, or would you just go, no, I'm not going to use that word? And I think that that's an interesting reference point, is because everybody can see it. And I know. So I made the decision that there's no swearing on my channel, on the stand-up from YouTube, but there's jokes which are slightly edgy. And I made the decision to put stuff out and say, look, I will tell stuff like this, and I'll continue, and I'll like the example of the Google Glass things, because that's I'm absolutely fine with, and I don't mind if anybody likes it or dislikes it, but I've gone through this, and I continue to look at this and monitor, because I know what you're saying, Joey, and I think it's a really big, I don't know whether it's a dilemma, but big question to be fearlessly answered.
Yeah, it's always a hot button. I guess I don't want to get too sidetracked with it, but it is very interesting. We'll see if anybody wants to, toss their answers in. We'll gladly, kick them around here with the few minutes that we have left with Martin.
Watch the language. Keep it steady.
See, that's funny right there.
It wasn't that funny. If that's the funniest we got in the whole show, we're in trouble. We should probably.
Well, we were in trouble when we hit record. So, but. So let's kind of get back to this of, fearlessly questioning, people's sense of humor. And what would you say is your biggest, how would you help somebody loosen up?
Help somebody with what? I missed the word. Sorry.
How would you help somebody, loosen up? So we were talking about relaxing and
I don't know. How do you loosen? It's interesting, isn't it? That's philosophical. How do you loosen up? I think you've got to not care, in a way. You've got to not care about trying to do something, about trying to be funny, trying to make somebody laugh. And then it's more likely that more funny things will come. Because you've just been spontaneous. I'm curious. You're just looking and going, what's going on over there? What's going on over there? Also, silly voices. Always good. People like that. Lots of silly voices. I don't think it's that difficult. I just think that you need a context. And I think also, see, the nature of conversation that we have, for whatever reason, makes me slightly more ridiculous, just because we're not talking about Google Plus, than otherwise. And other people know this and see this.
So you're blaming me for your ridiculousness right now? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, pretty much. No, but we're not. We're talking not about business. We're not talking about Google Plus. We're not talking about psychology. We're talking about perspective on something which is really kind of hard. Lots of people have tried to talk about funny stuff, and it means it's more natural. It means it's a bit more relaxed. There's not a script. All of this, I haven't written down and gone, these are the 10 things that I'm going to say. One of them might be funny, and the other's pretty much hopeless. It's just whatever you've got, which probably wishing I'd written a script now. But it didn't.
You said I did, Martin. You said it.
I know. Well, you could have given me the question anyway. But I think that people, you just got to play. Everybody can be funny, but I think there's also you learn and then you throw away the script, and then you bring it back when you need it. That is a really useful point. I know people, comedy writers. There's one chap, Adam McLaughlin. He's one of our comedy writers. He can take anything I write and make it 10 times funnier. And that is good, because I give a base set, he comes back and goes, wouldn't it be great if, and then I go, ooh, I'm not sure if I can go there. That's really a bit awkward. And then it's like, go on, do it, man, go on. And it's good, it's fun, but you have a dialogue and you work these things up. So I think talking with people, maybe. How long we got left? 15 minutes. Is anybody still watching? I'm not even looking at the event thread.
Nobody was ever actually watching, Martin. But
it's all right. That's all right. It was a bit like last time. It's no problem.
We're just performing for ourselves. I was complimenting you on your attire. Anyways, the whole reason.
It doesn't happen very often that I'm wearing a jumper in Brazil.
Well, the whole reason that I set this entire conversation, this topic up, was really based around my frustration of the people that I meet, who I like to call wallpaper. I mean, they're about as boring and uninteresting as it comes. I can't stand talking with them. It acts like if somebody would be sticking, a very sharp, rusty object somewhere in their spleen, and they don't want to even try to be entertaining or funny. So the last question that I kind of have for you, as this kind of slowly wraps up here, it's trying to communicate that benefit.
A bit early. That good, huh? I thought we were going to shoot for the 45-minute mark, but we're not. Clearly, 31 minutes in, pull it to an end. It's okay.
Well, we got a ways to go. Let's see where this goes. Just he's running the show, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this guy over here. No, so I mean, and we touched upon it a little bit earlier, but I want to go back to it and talking about the single greatest thing that you get out of being funny. What is it?
You smile. You smile, and you enjoy. It's and connection. You smile, but being funny makes you happy. Because other people, you're not. Well, you can be. You can make yourself laugh. I do make myself laugh, and think that was hilarious. And then you write it down, and then you either decide that it was or it wasn't, and you tell people, and they also tell you their perception on it. But most of the time, when you're funny, there's somebody else there, and they laugh, and you like that, and they feel connected, and that's it. So I think that's the biggest thing you get out. I think it's a leveler. I think it's a way of finding what you connect on. Let's look at if you tell a dirty joke, if the person laughs, you've got something in common, that you both found that thing funny. It doesn't have to be. It could be any subject matter, but it's a way of connecting you. Stand-up's different, I would say. Being on stage and doing it, that's like the first times you do it, it is a baptism. I mean, I like standing on stage and presenting, but stand-up, everybody's there for one thing, which is to laugh, and they don't have a clue if you've got the capability to do it or not. And sometimes you don't, and sometimes you do. Sometimes it's great.
Well, that's a good. I want to make that distinction right there, because you're right. It is very different. I've never done it, but when you're doing stand-up, you're creating the whole thing. You're creating the entire conversation. Whereas if you're talking about naturally being funny, you're just playing off the other half. So like if I say something funny from what you said, you're helping me create that. But when you're on stage, you're doing it yourself. And do you think people have that kind of misconception that like they have to create the whole thing themselves? Like they can't look for that kind of halfway point?
So I think this goes back to the conversation. It's if you've got a script, you stand on stage and you run through your script, and it's a bit like watching a TV show. But actually, what you talked about is you throw the script away and you go, "I'm going to talk with Joey." So where are you from, Joey? What is that your guitar on the wall? Are you going to what are you going to play us? What are you going to play us? You frustrated rock star. Come on, let's have a tune. And you basically start to play with what you've got, and you do that with the audience. And the funniest stuff is when you're riffing. It's when you just go, what we're going to talk about next, and go, great, So I don't want to talk about the tie. I don't want to be mean to the tie. But you go through and you basically decide. I can see from Joe's face, it's like, don't be mean to the tie. There's nothing wrong with the tie. The tie's great. So you decide the what you're going to bring the audience in on, and that's kind of the same thing when you've got people in real life. What are you going to bring them in on? And that's a great way of having a conversation. And if you keep it light and the intent is to play, that's fun. I mean, being British, you get brought up, and you don't realise really quite after that you take the mickey out of your mates. That's kind of what your mates are the people that let you take the mickey out of, and that you allow the same to happen as well. And so there's a lot of banter that goes on. Maybe it's exactly the same elsewhere, but certainly I grew up in the UK. And I think that sort of bantering is what you do on stage when you've got the audience and you're alive. And the person goes up, but you're in control on stage. You can kind of move the attention to somebody else. You know, there's a little bit more direction
there. Taking the Mickey out of the maid, I have no idea what that means, but I let
you
it
don't know
go.
what that means, taking the Mickey.
You're speaking English again, so I got nothing.
I am. Taking the Mickey. I don't want to say you rib somebody, because that just sounds, I don't know. So you taking the Mickey, that's really good. What is that? I don't want to say what the alternatives are. Yes, there we go, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
A little, just a little. You know? Yeah.
I mean, what else are friends are for, right? I mean, they serve no other purpose.
I'm wondering.
You're wondering. Well, Martin, this has been probably not as funny as people thought, 35 minutes. And we sometimes...
It was never, I told people, I put the post out, I said it's not going to be funny. It's just going to be us talking about that, and we might enjoy and have a nice conversation, which I always enjoy the conversation with you. So that's good. And it just happens that people have been watching the conversation thinking, when's the funny bit going to come? It's not. And that's the thing, is that, and I think it's a really important point. If you say, I'm going to be funny, you set yourself up for failure. If you go out and if you do comedy, the most fun, I'm going to go out and have fun. I'm going to go out and enjoy myself. I'm going to go out and play, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to write ideas down, and I'm going to, and that is great. That's much more important.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And like I said, I think what I wanted people to get out of
Total
this...
cop-out, of course. I mean, it was total cop-out, and basically saying, and that's the safety net for watching 36 minutes of the show and it not being funny.
Well, I mean, what I wanted people to get out of it was the fact that, listen, I think this is probably one of the more... leading up to the show, I did my little rant. I'm sure you didn't watch it. It's okay. I won't hold it against you. But I said this is the greatest secret weapon that you could probably have, that people don't really even look to try and sharpen or acquire. And that, I think, is my frustration, and it's coming out in the show, and that's why I wanted to have it.
People like it when you can make light of things. Humor is a really powerful tool, but the point is there's a difference between being witty and being humorous as well. There's a difference between joke telling and telling long stories and just being humorous. And I think that's the bit, and the humorous bit takes practice, and it's a view of the world. You've got to kind of be okay with the world to be funny. You've got to make light of certain things that may be challenging to you and things like that. So it isn't a constructed do this to that. It's actually going, those mosquitoes, and then what is it? Going, why are they evil little blighters? What is going, and the natural whole thing, and just going off on a rant about it. That's actually, okay, there's a technique. Let's go back to the other bit. You can edit this in after. Technique is rant. And you did this rant, and you found that I'm not a good ranter. It's like, I don't want to rant. I've got nice things. But I'll rant about my lack of language skills. We've ranted on that for ages, and now I've failed to learn 6 languages now. Not many people can say that. That's almost an achievement in my book. But you want rants. It's like find the things that you're frustrated about and rant. But I have a thing which is about being kindly on it. Because we can always rant about the things that them over there. But what about us? Rant on us. That's an easier way of having constant material about how ridiculous our responses are, how ridiculous we are, because that's what makes us unique.
So it'd be kind of like me saying I don't think I'll ever be able to wave my fingers through my hair like Martin Shervington does. I don't think I'll be able to pull that off.
If only you could, is what you were thinking.
I can't. I'm thinking that. I mean, I've been thinking that the whole show. It took me this long, 30
But how would your
minutes
life be different? If you could, how would your life be different? What would you be doing?
Well, if I had the accent to go with the hair, I think it would be a lot different. To be honest
as well.
With you. Yeah.
Okay, let's build the future world. Come on, where would you be living? What would you be doing?
I would probably be in Brazil talking about mosquitoes and how I can't speak Portuguese. Is probably what I'd be doing.
Probably. That could happen. It's hair.
Well, if you actually, and Martin, I got you to about 40 minutes, so I didn't want you to feel like you couldn't fill the time.
I felt all right. It was good. I feel we haven't failed. We haven't failed, Joe. It's not a failure.
I said Phil, not Phil. Phil.
No, we failed. It's okay. No. I'm just we're gonna wordplay as well. See, I like wordplay. Clever, not funny. That's what wordplay is. It's always, so droll, and it's like, you didn't laugh though. You didn't laugh. Anyway, So, wasn't somebody going to come and ask a question? Because
Well,
no one watched it.
you're a little you're a little too intimidating, Martin. Nobody
Is it-
thinks they can hang with your hilariousness.
Nobody's watching. Actually,
I have a question. If you're intent on this, I do have a question from
no,
John.
not Russian. Go on.
I'm gonna give you a question because you asked for one. He just doesn't want to come
All
on
right.
camera. Here's your question. This goes back to the whole.
Hello, Joshua.
Josh, my buddy Josh Lipstone says you kind of look at this as being true to yourself instead of being what you think of someone wants you to be in fake. Yes.
It is, and but I also think it's knowing the context, and the swearing thing's a really good example. Which is, if you're doing business, is that something that somebody would take objection to? But I think that the whole debate around it, I think this is a really big one, and I think that I think swearing's a symbol of it. I don't think it's the whole thing, because I think you could talk about, what about making jokes about religion or politics or sex or whatever it may be. And I think it's just knowing where things are. And it's also context. You don't have to go, hey, world, I'm going to be authentic and you are going to hear it right here and now. And all in one. It's like you can kind of do bits of things here and there based upon where you're at, where, the content that you're putting out, where you're going. It's not that there's not one thing that you should do. So if I'm doing stand-up and I've got things to do for a conference next year, then based upon the audience, I'll give different content. And I think that it's a journey in yourself to find out where you're at with it. But I think it's huge. I think this whole thing is like, and it's something which I'm still looking at, but I have this standout outlet that if I really want to, on that stage, and if that's recorded, it's a different context to here. So the setup is people are expecting that. Whereas on a day-to-day basis, it's different. Because my philosophy on Google Plus is very much, I open the shop, the first post, and I close the shop, the last post. And I said that's the way I do my post on Google Plus. So people don't necessarily want me to be given a view. But then again, I pretty ought to rant more about how ridiculous some of the things are that I think and see and do. So I take it on board.
Well, I think we were very successful in one thing. If anything, we were very successful into how to tell people not to talk about being funny. I think we did that pretty well. Everything else, I think we failed miserably on. So.
Well, but we plan to fail. Isn't that what? No, that's something else.
Yeah. They say admitting it is the first step to recovery, so we can at least give that to ourselves. Martin, I do greatly appreciate you taking the time to spend with us here. If you do want to hear the fearless question Martin is most afraid to ask himself, and again, it took me an hour and plus minutes to get it out of him. So
it's about 3 minutes. It's edited to about 3 minutes.
It's well worth it. Go ahead to get over to fearlesslyquestioning.com/getfearless. I will go ahead and drop that link into the event page. But Martin, where can people find more of you being not funny?
Well, do you know what? I think they ought to go and subscribe to your whatever it was, website. I was going to say channel, but it's the website. I think that they ought to watch, as a next step, those 3 minutes, because of this conversation, Joey. And those of you that go and watch it for more than a minute and a half, will absolutely relate and understand to the decision that was made in terms of the content. But I want you to watch my facial expressions, because if you this is all the setup, basically. We've just done a 43-minute setup.
They didn't even know it.
For a punchline, which you will get if you sign up to Joey's. Do you know what? We're that good, Joey. 43 minutes. Whoever stayed long enough gets a special treat on your website. They can find me on Google+, but I want everybody to go and do that, because it absolutely directly relates to everything we're talking about here, conceptually.
Well, I don't think I need to say anything more. Martin, that does it. If you guys want to go and see what Martin's talking about, go ahead. Remember, get to fearlesslyquestioning.com/getfearless for all of you podcast listeners that are late to the game. But Martin, thank you so much for taking the time and for not being funny with me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Anytime you want me to come back and not be funny again, I'm here.
I will hold you to that, and I look forward to maybe meeting you in person again sometime and having you forget and maybe freaking you out a little bit.
Definitely. No back touching. Right.
All right.
Take care.
Fantastic.
See you.
We'll catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy, everyone.
Cheers.